Today is episode 32 with Dr. B and the 14th Ask Dr. B show.
Welcome to the Harness Your ADHD Power podcast. If you're looking for a fresh perspective and actionable steps on hot topics from focus to follow through to self-management and more, you are in the right place. Welcome your host, innovative educator, coach, and psychotherapist, Dr. B.
Hey, dears, I am so glad that you could join me today for my podcast show. We've got a tighter format, hot topics, and clear steps for you to start taking today. So let's get to it. So many of the adults that I work with or I dialogue with have been diagnosed later in life. There are many reasons for this, and it's not the end of the world. Far from it. It's the beginning of your new life. Borrowing a phrase from the foreword of the first edition of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, recovered from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. That's what comes to mind when I think of ADHD and executive function deficits. Many adults have lived or continue to live in a seemingly hopeless state. Many haven't received a diagnosis yet or any truly useful help. And many feel hopeless, even suicidal at times. I've even sat with preteens who were feeling so hopeless that they couldn't focus or study or keep up with their assignments, and they had all but given up. That's just not okay. Not okay for anyone. And since our mental health system doesn't seem to be able to catch up or step up to address this huge problem, then it's up to you to educate yourself and advocate for yourself and your loved ones as best as you can so that the care that's so desperately needed is received. And that's all well and good for me to say that. But you might not feel that you're able to do this on your own. I get it. And I'm going to give you whatever I can here to help you. I'm going to be addressing 3 interrelated topics today to help you see the path from hopelessness to diagnosis to having hope to becoming successful as an adult living with ADHD. It's definitely a journey, one that is unique to each of you. And there is definitely a path to follow. In fact, it's kind of a hero's journey path, one where you are definitely the hero. I say that because it takes tremendous courage to face what is, give a name to it, understand it for what it is and it has been, forgive yourself for how it's been, because it's not your fault that you didn't know, cultivate hope for your life moving forward, as you learn how to become successful as an adult living with ADHD. And just so you know, receiving a diagnosis later in life does not preclude you from taking this journey. It just means that there's additional issues that you may need to address because you've experienced so many different life events without knowing the cause of the challenges, and most likely made negative meanings from the countless failures that you might have experienced along the way. None of your history marks you as someone who cannot or will not recover from what's been and be able to move into what can be for you. What you've accumulated are wounds and interpretations. And since you are the meaning maker of your life, you get to decide what meanings you're going to choose to apply to your past experiences and those for your future. Many of you come to this later in life diagnosis having been abused, neglected, abandoned, or kicked to the sidelines in a multitude of ways. My heart breaks every time I think of just how hard it's been for so many of you. And yet, you've survived and you're still here. Your fighting spirit still wants a good life and hasn't quit trying to get it yet. I want you to have the life that you want for yourself as much as any other person can want something for another. I feel it's your birthright to have a good life and to be happy. And that just because you didn't have that in the first half of your life doesn't mean that you don't get to have it in the second half. It just doesn't. And since helping you shape new behaviors is part of my intention here, with stories and action steps for you to take, I want you to know that based on the science of neuroplasticity, you can change the shape of your life moving forward. However, if you're holding a belief that you're terminally unique, which many do, this is going to need to be addressed and resolved. Why? Based on terminally unique, the understanding for me, it implies that you are exceptionally different and that you don't really fit into society, which can contribute to feeling isolated and depressed. Believing that you're somehow terminally unique can make it hard for you to connect with people. This feeling often stems from feelings of insecurity or self-doubt. I get it. I've been there. Perhaps you even believe that what's working for so many others and helping them to succeed can't possibly work for you, and that you're doomed to live the life that you've had forever. I remember feeling that way, and I was told that I didn't have to believe that it could happen for me. I just had to be willing and open to believing that it could, as I took the necessary steps forward toward the life that I wanted for myself. Speaking only for myself, that advice was solid, and I did come to believe along the way. What allowed me to come to believe that it could happen for me was being a student of my own life and measuring my own progress day by day and seeing the differences and changes, even if they were very small. I celebrated all of them because they were happening. And I guess I was a seeing is believing kind of person back then. And so when I saw, I could begin to shift my belief and start believing that it could happen for me too. I believe this is the journey that many of us make, and firmly believe that if you do what you need to do for yourself, which will be specific and unique to you, you too can and will move from being stuck to unstoppable. I'm not saying it's always fast, or certainly not easy, but with clear steps to take and a clear path to follow, you can get there. You can. And you are not alone. I have intentionally created many ways for you to not be alone in this journey because we all need each other. We do. And if you need to learn and master executive function skills or anything else I suggest, you're going to need to set aside time to do so. And I hear you. Set aside what time? When you already feel strapped for time and steal from your sleep and other places in your life to barely get things done. I get it. These executive function deficits may be affecting many areas of your life, and perhaps they're the underlying reason for so many of your challenges. And you don't have to have ADHD to have executive function deficits. As I said before, most all with ADHD have these deficits, and there are many others of you who do not have ADHD, but have these executive function deficits too, and they're derailing your life. So either life will make you stop, and you have to address them, or you'll be proactive and choose to do so before a crisis hits. I'll do whatever I can to help you. Shifting gears for a moment, since this is an Ask Dr. B episode. Did you wake up with any questions this morning? Are you looking for answers? If so, I want you to consider sending your questions over to me so that I can answer them for you. I would love to do that. And if your questions arise in the moment, when you think about the tasks that you have to complete and you feel overwhelmed before you even get to them, because you have questions like, where do I start? How do I start? What do I do when I get to something that stops me? Or maybe you even wonder if you should start on something. Is that you? If so, then keep track of your questions as best you can and send them over to me so that I can help you to get answers and to get unstuck. If you have lots of questions, then ask me lots of questions. Seriously, you'll be doing me a big favor by sending me your questions. Honest. And in case you're wondering what kind of questions you can ask me, here's some examples of what others have asked me over the years. How can I declutter my home without getting overwhelmed? Is there a best way for adults with ADHD to live? Is ADHD really a gift instead of a curse? Your questions matter to me, all of them. How are you going to do what you need or want to do if your mind is filled with questions and roadblocks instead of excitement and motivation? Where are you supposed to turn in times like that? Well, one place you can turn is to me, which is one reason I created the Ask Dr. B format. It's also why I quickly started doing 2 episodes a week, because I felt that you needed information more quickly than a weekly show. I know how much information is missing for so many of you, and that you just can't successfully move forward without filling in some of the pretty huge gaps if you want to achieve lasting success and happiness. There's just no shortcuts here. By adding the Ask Dr. B episodes, I wanted you to have someone to reach out to and to tell them what it is that you're trying to achieve as best as you can. I wanted to be able to write to you and ask you questions like, do you know how to do A, B, C, D? And you could tell me what you knew and you didn't know. And because I know the sequences and the steps, I could guide you through the tasks that you want to get done and answer your questions along the way. I'd really like to be that person for you. In fact, I made it even easier to get your questions over to me. Just head over to my website and you'll see Ask Dr. B in the main menu now. Just click there and ask away. I'll be notified immediately and get to work on them for the next Thursday's show. And in the event that your question is outside the scope of my license, my practice, or my knowledge base, I'll find a guest who can address your question and have them do so on one of the special episodes. Either way, you'll get answers to the best of my ability to provide them for you. You've heard me say this before if you're a regular listener, and it continues to be true. My very curious mind is always wondering what it is that you all are struggling with or you're frustrated by, so that I can help you with it. I love directing my time, effort, and energy to the solutions that you need. It's one of the reasons I created the Harness Your ADHD Power community on Facebook. That community space is a place for us to learn about and learn from each other, as well as for me to learn more about what it is that you all need. I'd love to get to know all of you in that space, so please friend me on Facebook and then come and join the community. In fact, I've decided to go live in that community group probably once a week, probably on Mondays, to answer questions that you have, as well as offer a short teaching on a topic of interest or need. I'll be creating a post in the group with more information to update you. Thanks to those of you who have already joined us and are actively participating. If you're a new listener to the show, welcome. If you're a subscriber or regular listener, thanks for your loyalty and for trusting me to share meaningful content with you in each and every episode. And whether this is your first or your 32nd time of listening to my show, you're going to hear me say time and time again that you are not what you do or don't do, that you are more than that we are not defective or less than as people, as human beings. We're just wired differently. And that difference is actually pretty cool. Once you have answers to your questions, know what you need to do and how to do it, and have the best tools for you to get it done with the least amount of stress. It's my hope that you'll get some of what you need here. And remember, I am a work in progress just like you. I learn something new every day and I put it to work in my life. That approach comes from being willing to be a student of my own life, not judge myself for what I know or don't yet know, and stay focused on a strength-based solutions approach to my life. I have lots of strengths, as I know you do too. Once you're able to set aside all the negatives that are clouding your ability to see your strengths. Our strengths are one of the things that we have going for us, and it's important for us to acknowledge them and celebrate them. It is. Strengthening your strengths can go a long way towards scaffolding your weaknesses. Shifting gears again. I absolutely love my world map with the little flags marking all the countries and states where you all are listening. I want to acknowledge and welcome a few new listeners in France and Bahrain. We are not alone with our concerns. Not being much of a world traveler, it's exciting to know that my voice is traveling to all of you, no matter where you are on this planet of ours, that you're listening and relating to the challenges and stories and solutions. Thank you all for listening. You are truly a blessing to me, and your presence in my life is beyond anything I'd ever imagined. Before I get to today's questions and answers, I have a question for you. And you've heard it before if you're a regular listener. It's about your state of mind and your wins. I can't emphasize this enough, and I'm going to continue to ask you about your wins, and I'm going to encourage you to acknowledge and celebrate them every day. I encourage you to really look for your wins and then encourage you to acknowledge them and celebrate all of them, because every win that you celebrate on the road to your goals is going to serve and encourage you. It's going to lift your spirits, create a can-do mindset that's going to lead you to more and more wins. Plus, tracking them is going to show you the path to your successes, which is a wonderful thing to see. So what do I mean by wins? Well, they're those little things that happen every single day, good things, positive things, in the bigger picture of your life, and yet they go unnoticed, unacknowledged, and uncelebrated by you. It takes shifting your mindset, which is your attitude or your outlook, and it's totally worth it. Please don't be the person who continues to tell yourself that it's pointless to reward yourself for what you're supposed to do. That couldn't be further from the truth. Don't tell yourself that these are just the thankless little tasks of life. No, that couldn't be further from the truth. Those are the very things that deserve and need to be celebrated, so it becomes easier for you to do them consistently and more enjoyably each and every time. So what's it going to be for you today? Maybe you posted a goal for August in the community group. That's a win. Maybe you're signing up for the Adventures and Achievement program. That's a win. Maybe you've changed the meaning of something that was bringing you down to a more positive meaning, and now you're energized and grateful and you're moving forward. That's definitely a win. You get the point. Celebrate all of them. And none of this half-hearted celebrating. You gotta mean it. Exaggerate your emotions. Yes, wow, awesome, and certainly celebrate the big wins too. It's just that they happen so much less often. So celebrating daily wins makes a difference faster in your life because of the frequency. Shifting gears again. Today's episode is all about answering the questions that you have about issues or challenges that you experience as an adult living with ADHD and offering you hope. How much time do we have? Not much. So let's get to it. Thanks to you, my listeners and group members, for today's 3 topics: later in life diagnosis, having hope, and becoming successful.
This podcast is sponsored by Pure Potential with Dr. B. You can head over to drbarbaracohen.com and find the podcast show notes, grade free content from Dr. B, plus programs and services. That's drbarbaracohen.com.
Now back to being an adult with ADHD in today's world. There's lots of different reasons why you didn't receive a diagnosis until later in life, if that's your situation. Perhaps you're a woman who didn't show signs or symptoms of ADHD until after you had children and had a household to run, as well as your job and many other things. Or you might be a woman who entered perimenopause or menopause, and because of the drop in estrogen, your cognitive functions took a hit and you started to have challenges. Or you're a man who's never been hyperactive, and hence you were told that you couldn't possibly have ADHD because that's part of the diagnosis. Instead, you've been inattentive, impulsive at times, and have executive function deficits that have held you back for years, leaving you underachieving and feeling really bad about yourself. And there's plenty of women that find themselves in this situation too. Or you're someone who's attentive and you got missed because you can pay attention and you can get things done, but you can't control what comes out of your mouth, or you lack patience in just about every single area of your life due to the unaddressed impulsivity. Whatever the reasons, since everyone's journey is unique to them, I'm grateful for the opportunity to be here to answer what I can for you. I'm going to share a little bit about each topic, suggest action steps to take, and as always, because just hearing an answer or an explanation isn't enough, you need to take action or nothing actually changes. And if you can't take action on the steps that I suggest, it might be because you have some pre-skills or pre-steps that you need to take first before you can act on what I've suggested. Again, everyone's situation is different. However, we all have this thing in common, which is the ability to respond to our own needs. I hope that at least one of these topics is going to resonate with you and be of benefit. So let's keep going. Today's topics are kind of a composite sharing that's based on many questions that I've received over the years on these very topics. And I'm going to share some of the questions, spend a little time with each of the topics, and then provide some action steps for you, as always. That said, I'll start with the later in life diagnosis. A common question I'm asked is, what am I supposed to do with all the anger, resentment, grief, and other strong feelings about all the years of my life that feel like they were wasted because of struggling and not knowing why? The short answer is, you can't change the past, it's gone. So work through those feelings and let them go. They don't serve you moving forward. What you can change is only in this moment, and what you think and believe right here and right now, and the path that will lie out in front of you as you make your way into your future. For many of us who received a diagnosis later in life, there are a lot of feelings to process and let go of so we can get on with the work that needs doing now in order to live a good life moving forward. As to why it took so long to get diagnosed and why nobody noticed the problem, or if they did, that nothing was done up until now, that's still more of the same, which is what happened has happened. It's over and we can't get it back. We can either spend our precious time ruminating about that and trying to figure it out, or we can see and understand the reality of our now and take the necessary steps to carve out a good life for whatever years that we have left. Just because I lived for the first 50 years of my life not knowing is no reason to spend the next 50 years of my life being upset about that fact or bitter about lost opportunities or disastrous outcomes. Fact is, I could easily end up wasting the next 50 years in bitterness and frustration instead of living as fully and completely as I can now. The action step to take if you're sitting with a belly full of feelings is to find someone you trust to help you process those feelings so you can move on and embrace the life that you have and all that's really good about you and make the most of your life with the time that you have. I hope my input is giving you some things to consider about receiving a diagnosis later in life, new ways of viewing it, and what you might need to do to break free of the trap of the past. Transitioning to our next topic, which is having hope. I've received many questions over the years about this topic, and I wanted to share some of the questions, my responses, and of course some action steps. Bob asked, does there appear to be a time in the life of many persons with ADHD where they just give up, in a sense, and resign themselves to seeing themselves as underperformers? I've talked with and worked with many adults with ADHD, and most of them are starting from that place of having given up, in a sense, or resigned themselves to a life that's pretty much what they have. They want more and hope, in a sense, that they can have more, which is why they come to do the work. But they don't yet believe that things can really be different for them. They come to believe that things can be better for them and can change for the better by doing the things that will facilitate those changes. Another question Bob asked, what tools can they use to keep persevering and trying to achieve their goals? A clearly defined path is the first step. Without that, what's the point of taking the journey? A way to chart your progress toward the end point is important as well. It's not as hard to persevere on a path when you know where you're going, how to get there, and you can see the progress that you're making. It's like taking a road trip. You plan the trip and you plot the course that you're going to take to get there. You don't stop halfway to your destination. You continue until you arrive. How is this any different than what we're talking about? The reason you continue on is because you know where you're going, how you're going to get there. And there is no doubt that if you continue on the path that you've plotted, that you're going to arrive at your destination. This is the certainty that's needed with all other goals and journeys that we take. And what if you can't clearly define the path? What if you can't map out the steps to your goal? It's relatively easy to follow the map when all the information is already there for you, but when you have to create it yourself, that's where lots of problems can occur. What that means is that you might be missing some pre-skills to be defining the path or mapping out the steps to your goal, and that you're going to have to need to gain those skills first before you're going to be able to make the journey. Danny asked, what would you do given ample funds to get the message out to people currently struggling with ADHD that there's hope for change? I believe there isn't anything that can't be understood and solved. It may take time, it may take resources, however, there's answers. It's important to know what the real problems or the real challenges are and not just guess at what they are. You can't solve a situation without knowing and then solving the real problem or the real challenge. There's real solutions for the real problems that people face. Sometimes people aren't willing to do what needs to be done in order to get what it is that they need or want. I get it. There's a price for everything, whether it's time, effort, energy, or money. If we're willing to pay the price for what we want, then we can get it, provided that we're going after the right solutions to the right problems. And if we aren't willing to pay the price, then we can't get it. We may need to downsize to what it is that we say that we want so that we can match it with the price that we're willing to pay. And if that doesn't work for us, then we're going to have to be at this crossroads where we're either going to have to rise up to the challenge and pay the price, or we're going to have to accept that we don't want to pay that price and we're going to live within the means of what we're willing to pay or invest in ourselves. When there is resistance to change, it's because things aren't lined up correctly for that person to change. One size doesn't fit all with change or with anything. We have to know what it is and what it takes to get what we want, and then we have to make that journey in a way that we can make it. Often people make global statements about what the problem is, like saying that they hate school or their job or they can't do the work. After close examination of the situation, they come to see that it isn't that they hate their entire work situation or their entire academic situation, but that there's one area or two areas that are the problem, and that's bleeding over and contaminating the whole situation. They need to learn to compartmentalize what isn't working for them from what is working for them, and then enjoy what's working and embrace it, and find the solutions to what isn't working so that it will. Emmy asked, what hope is there in treating and managing extreme ADHD to be able to consistently control restlessness in professional environments? You know, it's important that the professional environment support your needs. Some people are very sensitive to fluorescent lights, and they get a headache or worse when they're around them for an entire day of work. You might need to have that lighting turned off and bring in a regular lighting device instead. Having your desk in the middle of a busy and distracting environment is not usually conducive to staying on task and focusing on your work. You might need to be in a cubicle or put up portable dividers around the surface of your desk so that you can block out the visual distractions of things that are around you and be able to stay focused. You might need to use music and earbuds as white noise to block out the auditory distractions. Again, it's evaluating the situation and what the real problems are so that you can come up with creative solutions to the actual problems. An anonymous listener asked, how does learning more about ADHD help me and give me hope? When you learn enough about ADHD in general, and specifically your ADHD, to truly comprehend the challenges, you can begin to wrap your mind around what solutions there are for these challenges. When you can get underneath the symptoms of ADHD and find the core causes or issues that need to be addressed, there can be hope. For example, executive functions are a real issue. It's something that gets developed in childhood. That's where it begins, and it can still be developed later in life. Clearly, without these executive function skills and abilities, we cannot do many of the adult required skills. We're just lost. Addressing all that coexists with ADHD is important in order to be able to fully address what's going on. Drawing out kind of a blueprint or a map of each person's situation or circumstances to see the big picture as well as the details is important before you're embarking on the journey of fixing things or developing things. You need to know a lot before you get started. Yeah, you can start without all this information, and you may very well end up wasting a lot of time and effort and energy going to the wrong directions and trying to address things that are not the core issues. Another anonymous listener asked, how do I develop hope? How do I become hopeful? You know, I think hope comes with insight and information. Without those things, hope isn't real or substantial in its presence. It's false hope or a fantasy or a dream. Hope for the best is a common phrase. What does that mean, to hope for the best? To dream about the best? To long for the best? No, hope doesn't mean wishful thinking. A person who is high in hope knows how to do the following things: set clear and attainable goals, develop multiple strategies to reach those goals, and stay motivated to use the strategies to attain the goals, even when the going gets tough. From an article that I read years ago, How to Help Students Develop Hope, the following 5 research-based guidelines were offered. Identify and prioritize your top goals from macro to micro. This means that you need the skill to prioritize. You need the skill to evaluate the size of something. Break down the goals, especially long-term ones, into steps. This means that you need the skill of being able to know where the line is or the break between the steps. You have to be able to see the steps or know the steps before you can actually break something down into the steps. There's more than one way to reach a goal. This means that you have to be able to understand options thinking and have the capacity to embrace options instead of being locked into only one way to reach a goal. Because if there's only one way to reach a goal or get your needs met, and that one way disappears and is no longer available, you're frozen and stuck and dead in the water. If you have multiple ways to reach a goal and get your needs met, then you're never dead in the water and you can always keep moving forward. Even if the options that you thought would get you there aren't working, you're still going to be able to come up with new ones until you get there. Access to stories of success. This is fine except for the fact that if the stories don't reveal how these people got successful, step by step, and all the backstory about them and their skill set and mindset and all that information, then their stories are just nice stories. But they won't help the people in need because they still can't see the path to the goal. Stories need to be more than just inspirational in a storytelling way. They need to be instructional so that the listeners can both be inspired and then instructed on how to get where it is that they want to go, just as the storytellers did. Keep it light and positive and enjoy the process of attaining goals, and even laugh at themselves when they face obstacles and they make mistakes, which they will. This will only work if they have the capacity to withstand these experiences in this way. They're going to need the resilience to do so, and many just don't have it. They're going to have to learn to enjoy the process because they don't. They're going to need to learn to laugh at themselves rather than feel shame and disgust and dismay and all the other negative emotions or feelings when things just don't work out as desired or planned. They're going to have to learn how to live with encountering obstacles and not quit or feel defeated. They're going to have to come to understand that making mistakes is part of learning and growing in this process, and that if they aren't making them, then they aren't really growing and changing. We learn more by what doesn't work than what does work. So as long as we continue to have success, we don't know why we're having the success. Then we're not able to sustain it. When we know how and why we're having success and how we're sustaining it, then we can continue to do so. And when we're not having success and we learn why we're not, then we can make the changes that'll get us closer to success, and then we're growing. So wrapping up, higher hope people have greater academic success, career success, marital success, stronger friendships, and they demonstrate more creativity and better problem solving. They have lower levels of depression and anxiety, and they're less likely to drop out or quit something. Research indicates that having hope may actually predict future successes, more than feelings of self-worth or positive attitude towards life. We need hope in order to feel the positives. External evidence of people with high hope. They don't take failure personally. They use it to improve the next time. They're more optimistic. They tell themselves they can do it, and they won't give up until they do. The takeaway message: hope can be cultivated. I hope that what I've shared helps you to understand more about having hope, and that even if you've lost it, you can get it back again if you can model what it takes to have hope. Transitioning to our next topic, which is setting up for being successful with ADHD as an adult. Bob asked, what separates those ADHD adults who are successful and achieve many of their goals from those that continue to struggle? Probably the hard work of taking an inventory to assess their strengths and assets, as well as their liabilities and weaknesses, is a good start. Once you know the starting point and what you're dealing with, you can make a plan, or at least get help making a plan. Without this information, how could you possibly plan for a better future? Successful adults with ADHD, as well as any other successful adults, they persevere. They don't quit. They find a way to reach the goal that they're seeking. They don't take failures personally. They strive to be their very best in all ways. They're open to other ways of doing things that are different from the ways that they've been doing things. They have a mental and emotional flexibility that lesser successful people lack. They aren't thrown off by a change in the plan. They're adaptable to change and they embrace it more easily than those that don't succeed. They take very good care of themselves and they seek to be top performers in life. That said, they do what they need to do to achieve that kind of life. Emmy asked, what are the key elements that successful people with ADHD do on a daily basis in their professional or business life? Well, they have a vision for their professional life. They know what they stand for and have accountability for their choices. They work well with others. They're a team player. They're open-minded and they believe that they can achieve their goals. They map out the steps to their goals. They consult advisors as needed, and they embark on their journey towards the achievement of their goals. They use a calendar regularly, and they write things down. They know how to prioritize things and get things done that they commit to. They admit when they're wrong or they don't know, and then they can learn and grow. And they're not swayed by the opinions of others. An important takeaway from this topic is that many of the things that successful people do involve executive function skills. And again, if we don't put in the time to learn those skills that we might be missing, we're going to get stuck when it's time to be learning the more advanced adult skills for success. There's just no shortcuts here. That's it for our 3 topics today. I want to thank my listeners and group members again for these topics for the Ask Dr. B format. A favorite quote of mine. Oprah Winfrey said, "The more you praise and celebrate your life, the more there is in life to celebrate." The question I have for you at this point in our journey together is, are you celebrating, praising yourself every day? And if you haven't been, are you willing to start right now? It's a small difference that you can make, and that can make the difference for a lifetime. Whether you're learning from my podcast episodes or live videos or part of the new community group on Facebook, or you're working with me directly in my innovative online program or one-to-one, you're in my world and I'm here to serve your needs. So no matter how you choose to have me serve your needs, it's an honor to accompany you on your journey and make a difference in the quality of your life. I appreciate you showing up today and in the future. For now, new episodes are released on Mondays and Thursdays. As a subscriber, the newest episode will be in your feed by 1 a.m. Pacific time. Plus, you won't miss out on anything special that I create. Certainly a good reason to subscribe. And remember, I love answering questions, so ask away or suggest topics for the Thursday episodes. So if you enjoy today's episode or any of the other episodes, please share this podcast show with your friends and family, as well as rate the show. If you'd like to do a little bit more, I'd be grateful if you'd write a thoughtful review on iTunes, so I'd know that I'm meeting your needs and how the show is helping you, if it is. You don't have to write anything lengthy, just a line or 2 would be great. I do love hearing from you, reading your reviews, learning about your struggles, and how the podcast show is benefiting you and those you care about. It means a lot to me to know that your life is getting a little bit better every time we get together. So that's about it for today. If you want to participate in the survey, ask me a question for the podcast episode or live video, get your free resources, receive periodic updates on new happenings with Dr. B, get on the wait list for Adventures in Achievement, or you just want to download your show notes, you can do all of that on my website, as well as learn about other resources and services. That is, if that's of interest to you. Thanks for listening. Until the next time, bye for now.
Thanks for your undivided attention. If you're hungry to make positive changes in your life, head over to drbarbaracohen.com and see how Dr. B can help you today. Whether you love making changes with one-to-one attention and community support, or on your own with self-study, or could benefit from coaching or psychotherapy, you'll find all the information right there at drbarbaracohen.com.